going on, Jerome's? Minnesota Vikings first padded practice going on right meow. It's just starting. Unleash the fury. Brian Flores, Minnesota Vikings, fantastic defensive coordinator, fed the local media jackals ahead of the first padded practice. And you know that Flo is just champing at the bit. So I learned that it's not chomping at the bit, it's champing at the bit from the show Billions. But Flores, it's got to be just like irking him. For the first 4 days of practice, all the clips, receivers running free, not being allowed to be pressed at the line of scrimmage, not being able to get those games and all that stuff. So you know that Flores in the defense just wants to hit somebody. That's right, man. And Flores talked about some goings-on with the team, notably the recent signing of defensive back Bobby McCain, who he had 2 years of experience with back in Miami, 2019-2020. Gessling said this. Brian Flores said Bobby McCain will start out at safety, but the Vikings might give him some work at nickel or outside corner. I love Bobby. Flores said he's smart, he's physical, he's played multiple positions, he communicates well. I was excited to get a chance to get him. Now, McCain is a safety and nickel. I played played only safety with Flores the 2 years in Miami. I played some slot cornerback his 2 years in Washington. He's not really an outside corner. I think that's why a lot of people raised an eyebrow with the Bobby McCain signing, because the Vikings potentially do have a need at outside corner through various injuries, and bringing in McCain as a safety and slot, like, it doesn't really jive with what's the current situation, especially given the Viking safety room is deep as hell with Metellus, Beasley, Harrison, Theo Jackson, Jay Ward. Now, this did raise an eyebrow because you do have two safeties on the roster who do have college cornerback experience. Cameron Beasley Bynum, as well as Carry On My Jay Ward's son, started out as a corner at LSU. So it could be a spot, too, where one of them starts working more at outside corner. But who knows? Basically, Flores is just like, let's just get good dudes, especially guys that I know and trust that can bust their ass, and then we'll just sort everything else out. Like Flores and Durante Jones will get after things there. So we'll see. Gessling again. While the Vikings' first padded practice is the first time their corners can press receivers, it's not the first time they can make contact with receivers. Flores said he would know. He goes through the league's bylaws on what corners can do in the spring with the precision of a lawyer. Quote: I read these memos and I go over them with a fine-tooth comb. You can put hands on receivers. You can't impede or impede a lot. It's so subjective. Essentially, in OTAs, in the early part for us, we just try to work the technique, and we talk about, hey, we put the pads on, we can do a little bit more here, get a little bit more of a jam or a chuck here. We try to stay within the parameters for sure. And that's the whole thing too. Is like, the rules are there for a reason, and you got to follow them. Otherwise, your team's going to get dinged. Usually a loss of practice time, which the coaches would hate, or loss of draft picks, which the GM obviously would hate. And it's not about trying to show up, but it is trying about doing that work. So I respect that Flores definitely goes through to make sure that the Vikings are walking the line, because a lot of teams don't. Every single year, it seems like a team gets dinged for being habitual line steppers. Guessing again, Flores on JJ McCarthy said JJ McCarthy has come to me on a couple of occasions asking for Flores' thoughts on what he can work on. Quote, he asks about some areas he can work on based on what we see him defensively. Based on how we see him defensively, his strengths, his weaknesses, Flores said. He asked the right questions. I think he's about the right stuff, and I'm excited to see him work. Feedback this time of year from offense to defense. I think that's one of the best things about training camp. And Flores has not been dialing it back for McCarthy. Like you could tell, like from the clips, he's throwing the kitchen sink at number 9, and it's the only way that everyone's going to get better, right? And also, I love that Flores. He's eager. He'll put in the work, and he's humble enough to ask Brian Flores about what he's looking for. Like what are his weaknesses? What are his deficiencies? What should he look for in the defense? And Flores, I mean, he's a teacher. He's a coach's coach, and he's got to love that, man. It's fantastic. Seaford, ESPN, who's not Carl Gershman. Lots of interesting blah, 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 blah. Including the revelation he's had several conversations already with quarterback JJ McCarthy about NFL defensive schemes. One thing they've zeroed in on, identifying tells. So there's always someone giving something away. And that's the whole thing, too, where defenses are good at disguising things, but what's really underrated is a defender that won't tip his hand, right? Because there's lots of ways for the offense to get a look at what the defense is going to do. Let that play clock run down, and if a player is blitzing that doesn't usually blitz, they're just going to be ramped up and like they're just going to give that thing away. And also just like having a guy in motion, various things that McCarthy could and should look at. So it's really important that McCarthy's going to be getting stuff like this down, and Flores is a great tool and resource. Also, speaking of outside cornerback depth, Caleb Evans, who started 15 games last season but was benched twice, Flores says we're going to need him. Twice is, I think it was 7 times. But in terms of outside corner, I mean, ideally, Murph would stick to the slot exclusively or outside when it's in base, but I think Murph might have to play more on the outside. Shaq Griffin, thankfully, missed a major injury, so he's going to be a factor at that outside left cornerback spot. And then you got Evans, Shelley, and Booth, and then UDFA McLaughlin. I mean, Mekhi Blackman is going to be a large factor at the other cornerback spot, but he's up on blocks with that ACL. But Evans is talented, man. We've seen flashes of it over the last 2 years, and he's got the right temperament. He's got size. He's got length. And if he can just get it together, and it would be really solid. Caleb Evans being good would solve a lot of the Vikings' personnel issues in that defensive backfield. Right. And that's it. That's a look at Brian Flores' presser ahead of the first pad of practice. Talk about practice. Let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, his thoughts. You guys know what to do. Skol, production value.